So, where do we begin with Sangam? Because it's a term that I got to know through the podcast. But if you're growing outside of the southern part of our country, you don't even hear it much. But everyone, south of the Vindhyas usually has heard of Sangam. What is the starting point to even understand this?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, one of the things that we've been saying for a very long time, and by we mean South Indian historians and South Indian people in general, is that our textbooks need to represent South India in a much, much better manner. It's not that they don't have anything on South India as of now, but it's very little.
It's nothing from what I remember, ma'am. Like, there's a mention of Chola dynasty. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's it. That's what I was about to say. Even if there's a mention, then it's Chola, and then you straight away jump to Vijayanagara, and then maybe the freedom struggle in the south, and that's it. But the south has a very long history. For instance, Subarayulu, who's one of the most eminent historians that South India has produced, he argues that the megalithic culture, which is very similar to what you have in the Stonehenge in UK. So where you have these huge stone blocks, and they might be calendars, some kind of ancient calendars. They might be places where people gathered for ritual activity. We're not sure. But from those megaliths, we know that people collaborated. They came together. They maybe did rituals together. They might have had some conception of astronomy. They might have had some conception of time, so on and so forth. And that dates back all the way to 12,000 years ago. And that's a long history that we have. So, and then we have till date, we have different kinds of monuments. For you, so we've given them very modern names. For instance, we have what is called as umbrella stones, Kudakal. And then we have hat stones because they resemble umbrellas. And then there are other kinds of stones, and all of these are man-made. These are not natural rock occurrences. These are shaped by human hands. And we have a 12,000 year long history which is not represented at all, which I feel is highly problematic, because we need to get to know each other, right? If we are living as Indians in this country, and this country is an extremely diverse, extremely plural country. We had this old slogan, unity in diversity, and we need to know about that diversity. So, the earliest references to South Indian history would be from these these menhirs and Kodakallu and Toppikallu. These are umbrella stones and hat stones that we have, which were part of megalithic culture. But this was not a literate society. We do not find evidence of any kinds of script. But the first reference that we have, first historical reference that we have, is from what is referred to as Sangam literature. And there are a lot of debates on it. Some historians argue that there was no Sangam at all. There was no literary council of poets who came together yearly or biannually or every 10 years. So
You have to give a lot of context on what
okay,
the
so what
word
is
Sangam
Sangam?
means also.
Okay.
Like, imagine we've never heard of the
Okay.
word Sangam.
Sangam just means a group, a collective. So 1, 2, 3, 4 people sitting together could be Sangam. So it just means group. But in this particular context, it refers to a collective of poets who would come together and describe life. So it's a huge set of poems. In fact, you have different genres of poems. You have a set of poems which are referred to as the Ahannanur. And Ahannanur talks about love. And you would find the most romantic verses ever produced probably on the Indian subcontinent in Ahannanur. Aham means Aga means inside, and Nanur is 400. So 400 poems about, or 400 poems about what goes inside a person's head, a person's mind, a person's heart.
Wow.
So you would have poems which describe love, and the notions of love were very, very different from how we understand it today. So you would have poems. Sorry, you were.
I want to hear like some of the
so,
concepts.
So, for instance, the early historic Tamil society, it was divided into 5 zones. So you had the Kurinji. Now Kurinji refers to the hill area, the hill tracks, hills and the mountains. And then you had the Palai. These were the wastelands. And then you had the Mullai. I know this.
No, it's fine.
These
Go
words
on,
might be just sounds for you. The Mullai, they were the grasslands where you had people who were pastoralists. In Kurinji, in the hill regions, you would have tribal people who would be hunter gatherers, who would also engage in a certain kind of banditry. In the wastelands, because nothing could be produced there, you had a set of people who were called as the Maravar. Literally, it means people who disappear. So, which means that they can go and disappear somewhere, they can deceive you. The term that we use, another term that we use for Maravar is the Kallar, which is the same word that we use till date in Tamil and Malayalam for thieves. Which means that they might have also engaged in some kind of a plunder.
Okay.
Then you had two more zones.
Go
You had the Maridam, which was the agricultural land, with a fertile land, and then you had the Neidal, which was the coastal area. So, and there would be these courtships between men from Kurinji and women from Maridam. And one of the constant complaints that you see through these poems is this man complaining that his beloved's mother is not allowing him to meet her. So, like you complain about mummies who are very protective, right? So, we're talking about like 2500 to 2000 years ago, when you had instances where women would elope with their lovers to other areas. You would have references to mothers and fathers standing guard of the daughters because she has fallen. She has been so smitten by love that they're very scared that the lover from Kurinji will come and take her away. But then you hear different points of view, which is very interesting for me because it's today that we have started talking about POVs and all. But at that time, you would hear this story from the lover's angle, and then the beloved's angle, and from the mother's angle. So, for instance, they would bring gifts of love. And the gifts of love would be something like boar's flesh, the wild pig's flesh, or it would be an ivory casket, or it could be a rare souvenir or a nugget of gold. So, through this conversation, and these are essentially love notes which are written, but for a historian, this also becomes historical documents. So, we get to know that, oh, there was gold present at that point of time. Ivory was being extracted. So, there was a practice of gift giving.
Okay. So, we spoke about roughly 12,000 years ago, which is 10,000 BC.
Huh.
And then we went directly to 500
500
BC.
BC. Huh.
What happened in that period in Tamil Nadu? That's one question.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, whenever we bring up Sangam as a word, I have understood that it has some kind of modern day context as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is it still relevant today? For example, when we talk about the Mahabharata or Ramayana, there is certain psychological elements that you can tie into governance even today. You understand human beings better when you really, really dive into those texts. So that's the question I have. In terms of in 2024, what's the modern day relevance of it?
Okay. So from 12,000 BCE to 500 BCE, we do have a lot of references to these megalithic sites. And we have not discovered many habitation sites, which is a limitation because, South India is more tropical than it is in the north. So we get a lot of rain and it's a lot more hotter down there. So it's things will perish away. And a lot of the building material that was used was wood. So we do not have much in terms of archaeology. And as I mentioned, this was not a literate. We had not, in South, we had not actually invented writing yet. Though we have found some Tamil Brahmi inscriptions here and there, but nothing which could be read as a text. So it's more of a historian's issue rather than South India not having history. It's just that we have not found those sources yet. But we do have evidence from sites like Kodumanal, where you have steatite being present, you have garnet being present. So we know that there must have been a flourishing maritime trade because these are precious gems which are not found in South India. So they must have come from somewhere else. And now we have the Kiradi excavations happening in the Shivaganga district of Tamil Nadu. And it is comparable to any other ancient civilization, whether it's Mesopotamia or Egypt, because there is so much being unearthed. And at the same time, you have Musiris in Kerala being excavated. This is a site which is like 20 kilometers away from Cochin. And there is a site museum both at Kiradi and at Busiris. We have even unearthed coins and pendants with the Roman Sphinx on it.
Wow.
So it very clearly shows that there was cultural exchange happening, there was trade happening. So for instance, if you look at Pliny the Elder's work, or there's this work called Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, these are Greco-Roman works, and they are lamenting of the fact that all the gold in Greece, all the gold in Rome is flowing to South India. And there are mentions of camphor, there are mentions of myrrh, there are mentions of ivory again, sandalwood. And these were products which you couldn't find anywhere else in the world. You could only find them in South India at that point of time.
If you enjoyed today's clip, make sure you check out all the other clips we've uploaded on this channel. You'll find a clip related to almost every single topic as long as you're willing to search for it.